Hi, in today's video I'm going to show you how to open up and disconnect a NuTone model 2561-2562 Master Station. This is a 2562 model. This is one of the more unusual gold-faced masters. What's interesting about this particular unit that was sent in to me for repair is that this has a faceplate that was made in 1962, but the chassis is from 1972. So someone has done a little swapping around, probably in the past, to keep their set working. It's one of the interesting things about the 2561-62. It went into production in 1957, was in production all the way through the end of 1974. It's the longest model that NuTone ever made, although there were about 9 different variations of chassis that were made over all of those years. The fundamental chassis layout remained the same, so you can swap faceplates or swap chassis. Even the knobs are the same, so it's a very flexible and well-designed unit. It's not uncommon for me to get these into the shop when they're 40 years old and it's the very first time they needed to be repaired. It was a very well designed and high quality unit. So let's take a quick look at the controls on the face before we open it up. So you have separate AM and FM radio dials. This one, the tuning condensers are a little stiff, so that'll be taken care of when I rebuild it. The FM is better. The earliest versions of these models, the FM tuners were not as good as the ones that they made in the 70s. So the FM tuners tend to get weak and the reception levels drop off, and that's kind of annoying, but generally they can be fixed. The top control on the Master Station is the combination volume and tone control. The volume knob is the larger knob. The tone control is the tab behind it. When you turn the volume knob counterclockwise and click it off, that truly turns the entire system off. No part of it would be powered up. It's one of the reasons that these systems last as long as they do. In many households, they spend a lot of their time turned off in the evening and at night, and they just don't accumulate as many hours as systems that are on constantly. So when you turn the system on, the volume, which would later have been referred to as volume to all speakers or program volume, it's basically the radio volume throughout the house. You would start with this set at around 11 o'clock, and then you can adjust the tone tab to give you whatever sort of sound that you like out of your music. The next control is your selector switch. It controls your music or audio inputs. So if you turn it counterclockwise, your first position is phono, which would be phonograph, back in the day when they used to make in-wall phonographs. The next setting is AM radio, then FM, AFC. AFC stands for automatic frequency control. It was the type of electronic circuit that was common in early FM tuners. It helped prevent the FM tuner from drifting off station. And then you have standard FM. Oftentimes, weaker radio stations will play better on FM than they do on FM AFC. You have master volume. That's the volume control for the speaker that's built into the Master Station. And this, as in most intercom systems, you would start it at maximum. This particular control on this unit is almost frozen. It's almost impossible to turn. And then you have your intercom function switch. It's a 3-position switch. In the center position where most speakers are normally set, it gives that station both radio and intercom. If you turn it to the right one position, it places that station in a monitor position. Monitor means that this station would pick up sounds in its area and you would hear those sounds coming out of the other speakers on the system. If you go one position to the left of center, it's in standby. Standby later would be called intercom only. Simply you have intercom functions at the station but no radio. Stations would be left on radio intercom. At the bottom of the panel you have your 2 intercom lever switches. You have outside talk and listen. On this system, outside refers to front door speakers, not the patio speakers. And you have a talk position and a listen position. The 2561-62 was the first system that NuTone made with what was later referred to as hands-free reply, which means that the intercom conversation is controlled by the person that initiates the call. On this model, The front door speaker does not have a push to talk button. It's all controlled from the inside. If a visitor came to the front door and rang the doorbell, you would move the switch to the talk position to ask who's there, and then move it to the listen position to hear the reply. The other intercom lever switch are for the inside and patio stations, and again you have talk to call to someone, and then listen to hear the reply. So let's go ahead and open this unit up, and I'll show you how to take it out of the wall. The 256162 is by far one of the simplest and easiest models to remove from where it's installed. You're only going to need two tools. You need a standard Phillips screwdriver and a small or medium-sized flat blade screwdriver. One thing to be cautious of, when you remove the four faceplate screws, the Master Station is not held to the wall or the wall housing in any fashion whatsoever. It's not like the later models that have hinges at the bottom and it folds down from the wall and is supported by a strap or some other method. Once you take the screws out, it's loose, and if you're not prepared, you might drop it on the floor. And you don't want to do that. Plastic faceplates on these models have gotten brittle over the years, and if you drop it, you're likely to crack it or break it. So I'm removing the four faceplate screws. There's one in each corner. And once I take those out, of course, you want to put these away somewhere safe because you're going to need them when you get your set back from repair. So once I've taken the screws out, all you have to do is carefully slide the set away from the wall and pull it away. And you'll see that there's very little. It's not actually attached in much of any way other than by some wires at the top. So what you have at the top are two plug-in cable assemblies. There's a small round one on this side for the antennas, and there's a larger rectangular one here which has the wires from the transformer and all of the intercom lines. So let me show you how to disconnect those. So here's a little better shot of the two plug-in cable assemblies. The one on the right, the small round one, it's usually brown and it's about as big around as a nickel. It'll have two antenna assemblies fastened to it. This brown flat twin lead, which is your FM antenna, and this single blue wire, which is your AM antenna. These models had separate AM and FM antennas, which was common back in those days. And then on this side is the larger rectangular plug with all of the intercom and power wires. So let me show you how to unplug these. First, we're going to unplug the antenna connection, and you have the brown flat twin lead and the blue AM antenna wire. The way not to do this is to grab the wires and pull. If you do that, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to pull the wires out of the pins where they're soldered into, and that creates a real problem because repairing that means that you have to do more disassembly than just take out the master station. So the proper way to do this is to use your small or medium-sized flat blade screwdriver, and you very carefully put it between the metal chassis and the bottom of the round plug and pry it up. Once you get it out a little bit, it'll simply pop out. What you'll see here is there are three pin connections on the bottom of the plug, and they match the three holes in the socket. The way these are configured, the shape that they're in, there's only one possible way to plug it back in, so it's very easy to deal with. You have to remember on these plugs that you may be taking this master station out for the very first time since the day it was installed, and sometimes these get a little stuck. That's why leveraging them up with a screwdriver is a good idea. Now we're going to unplug the larger rectangular plug with all the multicolored wires in it. At this point, the weight of the master station is being held by these wires and this plug. So once you start to unplug this, you're going to lose this support and the set's going to want to fall away. So you have to hold the front of the unit as you do this. When this was new, they gave you this yellow looped wire, and the purpose of this was you're supposed to put your thumb in it or your finger in it and pull up to unplug it. I don't recommend doing that at this point because of the age of the systems. So use your little flat screwdriver and place it under the corner of the plug and wiggle it up some and then transfer the screwdriver to the other side and wiggle it up, pry it up on that side, and working back and forth, raise the plug out of the socket carefully until finally it pops loose. Now your set has been disconnected and you're ready to set it aside. So now that we have the master station out, let's look at what's left in the wall. You have the metal wall housing, and there are these two side brackets that were installed when the wall housing was put in place, and these are the brackets that the faceplate screws go through to hold it in place. And you have your antenna plug and cables and your intercom plug with its wires and power. So the question is, where are all the other wires? Well, what's not obvious on these systems is they're right up here at the top. Right here, where it may be a little bit hard to see, is a plastic strip, and this is actually the terminal strip for this system. So I'm going to take this out and show you what this is about. So the plastic terminal strip is held in place with 3 screws. If you loosen the screws, you don't have to take them out all the way. The terminal strip has slots in it. If you slide it back towards the wall cavity, you can unhook it from the screws, and this is your terminal strip. This is where the wiring from the remote speakers connect onto the system. You have a row of screws, and on the plastic terminal strip itself you have a legend that shows you what the screws are used for. Here, as an interesting note, it's dated June 1964, and you'll see that each spot on the strip of paper corresponds with a screw. So here we have a ground connection, we have our 3 transformer connections. On 256162s, transformers are always mounted remotely in the house. They're never in the wall behind the master station. You have your red and red-white output wires, your black and black-white door speaker wires, your blue and blue-white wires for the standby mode. Orange and orange-white is input, connections for an external chime, and then your AM and FM antenna connections. So when you're doing troubleshooting on a system like this, it's helpful if you take the terminal strip out to give yourself a little bit more room to work. Otherwise, you're trying to work with it up inside the wall, which is very difficult because you can't see anything. I hope you found this video to be helpful. If you did, please like it or give it a thumbs up on YouTube. If you think this video would be helpful to other people with 256162s, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribing to our YouTube channel raises our search results on YouTube, which means that it'll be easier for other people to find our videos so they can get some help also. If you have ideas or suggestions for videos about NuTone intercom systems, please leave them in the comments. I do read the comments and I will respond to them. And if you have a good suggestion for a video that would help you and other people, I'll make a video for you. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.